Alright, I want to do one little follow-up video and talk to you a little bit about face proportions and how sometimes they change depending on the angle of the face. We focused on a face that was facing you head on, and all these proportions would fall basically within these means. I am going to show you real quick one other demo face I did some time ago. This was another demo face I did, and the reason why I'm pointing it out is that sometimes you'll see people that have like small tufts of hair like this that pop up, or they have hair that sweeps over the side. Again, whenever you draw hair, look for sections or shapes. Don't worry about drawing every hair right away. Focus on the big sections and shapes or clumps or plugs of hair, and then once that is done, you can go back in and you can start adding in those extra lines to make it look like, hey, that's hair, and you can add in extra lines where they're needed and even shading where it's needed, and even erase out, back out to create reflections. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about faces. Sometimes a person faces his head on and the proportions are straight up right. Like if we look at this picture here, if you measure the eye, well look, it's about the same distance in between and on the sides as well, 5 equal eye lengths. If you look at the eye level, from the eye to the chin, yep, it goes from his eye level to his bald head. Now, if he was tilted more forward, then this part of his head would be bigger and this part would be smaller. If he was tilted away, if we were looking up at him, this half would look bigger and this half would look smaller. But again, he's facing us almost directly head on. Now, if we look at somebody else, you might not get the same result. Like if we look at this guy, his head is tilted slightly to the side. And so that's another thing you got to keep in mind, that the proportions are usually going to be the same whether you're facing someone head on or whether you're tilting. But if you're tilting, that eye level line is still going to be perpendicular to the middle of their face, whether their head is straight up or whether it's tilted to the side. But we are seeing more of this side of his face than this side of his face. Because if we take this pencil and we measure his eye length, yes, we're still going to get one eye length in between, one eye length here, but we come over here, we've got a lot more space here. We have a lot less space over here. We're seeing more of this side of his face. Also notice that he's smiling a little bit. Because he's smiling a little bit, the distance from the bottom of his nose to his mouth is going to be less than a third. It's not going to be quite a third. It's right here. And the reason why is when you smile, the lips go up and it decreases this space. If you open your mouth, it's going to change everything as well. If we look at another face, like this one, we've got the eye length. Well, that's right, and that's pretty good to the head, to the hair. But over here, there's only a little bit of head here. We don't have as much space. So again, it's going to change the proportions depending on the angle that you look at them. So always actually look at the person that you are drawing, because that can change what the proportions are. If we look at this guy right here, he's got kind of a funny look on his face. If we measure the distance from his nose to his mouth line, 1, 2, not quite a third, because he's wrinkling up his face a little bit. We can't see his entire head. So his bald head, not quite here, because I think the camera is actually looking up at him. So this half of his face is bigger. His eye's going to be a little higher because the camera is a little lower than the eye level. So again, if you're drawing from a picture, always check your measurements, compare them. The measurements I gave you, yes, I want you to use it for maybe just a head-on straight portrait, but if you're doing one from a photograph at some point, you always want to go back and cite and double check the proportions before you commit to them on paper. Good luck, best wishes, happy drawing.